People don't buy things based on logic, they buy things based on emotion. So today I'm going to walk you through how you can actually, with your Facebook ads, really tap into the emotional side of your consumers, get them to buy even more from you, and kind of create an urgency to them actually taking action rather than waiting and sitting on their problems for a longer period of time. So if this is the first time joining one of my lives, I'm Brian Czekanski. I help mom-focused businesses scale their business by cracking the code with Facebook ads and allowing them to cut their work hours in half. So let's kind of talk through one of the key ways, and I talked about yesterday about research and actually diving into the research is really important into what we're going to talk about today, because we want to really identify kind of those trigger moments that your audience has on a day-to-day basis. They're not feeling their problems 24 hours a day. It's not top of mind for them, but there's going to be certain instances in their day, in their week, in their life where those problems are at the height of, right in front of their brain. There's a huge amount of urgency to them and they want a solution to it right away. So in our advertising, we want to really kind of create a frame of mind. We want to really just take our consumers to those moments to really start to stir up some of those emotions to, create some urgency to the problem, because, like everybody knows that, everybody's got a whole long list of problems that they're trying to solve. But there's some that are in the back of your mind. There's some that are front of the mind. So if we can't really bring those problems front of mind and create some urgency to them, the natural tendency of consumers is to kind of sit on them, to wait, maybe do some passive research along the way, and then maybe they'll take some action once some specific moment in their life happens that, they get to the point where it's just like, okay, I can't wait anymore. I have to take action, and I have to find the solution along the way. So in our marketing, we want to stir up those emotions to create some urgency, to get them to a solution. And with your business, I can only assume that you're providing positive solutions that are transforming people's lives, providing great impact. So we should want more and more people, interacting, with your solution and using your solution, because on the other side is the transformational difference in their life. So again, stirring up those emotions isn't a negative thing. It's actually getting them to a better life that they wouldn't normally do on their own. So again, they probably would sit with their problems and continue to survive with them for as long as it might be it might be 6 months, year, those kind of things, until a specific event gets them to the point where they're ready to find that solution. So within our Facebook advertising, we want to really focus in on, again, those trigger moments. And those trigger moments are, again, in your research, that's a great way to figure out, okay, what are the points in the day? What environments are really triggering up these emotions? And there's so many different emotions that can be out there. It can be, it could be shame. It could be anger. It could be sadness. It could be all these different things. It kind of really depends on your audience, what problems that they're dealing with, and what solutions you potentially offer along the way. It could be just that they're comparing themselves to everybody else and feeling like they're just not in the right place. So that would kind of be more in that personal development type solution, where it's like, okay, let's live up to our full potential or our full fulfillment here by taking a different route or taking some different actions along the way. So in your research, again, in those forums and all those things, I'll link to the video above that I did yesterday, but going into forums, going into Facebook groups, and just being a fly on the wall and figuring out, okay, when my audience is really is experiencing the problems that I help solve, where are they? What is happening? What are some of those emotions? How would they describe their feelings and emotions in that moment? And, the other part of it is, again, I've talked about kind of testimonials and going out to past clients and, interviewing them, creating case studies. That's really important as well. Go to those happy clients that you've already delivered that transformation to, and take them back in their past when they didn't hire you yet, or they didn't buy your product. What were some of those moments? I always act my favorite question in the case study is okay, what was your bottom, what was your absolute bottom in terms of where you are before you hired this coach or bought this product or all those kind of things? What is that rock bottom moment? and kind of really being able for your client to sit there and actually describe like, okay, here was, and most people will know right away. Again, there's so much emotion there that the memories are just so clear, especially once they've gotten the transformation. They can really think back to that past self and say like, absolutely, my rock bottom moment was, March 6th, 1999, and here's exactly what was happening, and here's what the thoughts in my head, here's the emotions that were going through, here's what I was feeling, and all those kind of things. And all that detail is just really great for your Facebook advertising, because again, we really want to start with some of those trigger moments in your Facebook ads, so that we can not only stop the scroll and stop your audience right in their tracks, and kind of give them the feeling like, okay, how does this person know all the thoughts that are going through my head? How is this person describing something that just happened to me last week or a couple of days ago, or things like that, and really describing that, the problem that I urgently need help with. And again, as they stir up those emotions, and maybe the exact same environment or the exact same situation hasn't happened to them exactly, but it's going to stir up enough memories where they're going to think of, they're going to start to visualize that same situation, and themselves in that same situation. And if you can start to talk about the transformation that you've been able to, deliver for yourself or clients, or just talking about a story in general, and talking about how your unique formula or your unique mechanism can get them to that life that they're looking for, that's going to give them hope about actually buying your product, and giving them some urgency to actually follow through. So again, we're stirring up some of those emotions around the problem, but we're also stirring up some hope around the potential transformation, helping them kind of visualize what their life is going to look like once they make that buying decision, hire you as a coach, buy your product, buy your service, all those kind of things. So again, those are all kind of the things. I mean, a lot of the marketing that I see that doesn't work kind of goes more to that logic framework. Like, okay, here's why our product is great. Here's why our price is right. Buy here right now. And again, that fundamentally in that person's mind and the emotions there, it's not really tapping into, creating any urgency around their problem. So again, if it's something that, those people that do buy, the problem has already been brought to the surface before they got on Facebook, and maybe that's why they're more willing to buy. But we really have to provide that frame of reference, that frame of mind, to kind of put somebody in the buying sequence of, okay, my problem is top of mind. I have some urgency to it, but I also have a visualization of how this product or service or coach can get me to the other side. And I have that hope and belief behind it that really shows me that I can do it. So again, I've talked about this all the time, but within our Facebook ads, we want to, not tell people about their problems. We want to really show it through stories. And by showing it through stories, we're really going to drum up some of those emotions. And by drumming up those emotions, we're going to get people to that sale a lot quicker. So what I want to do is kind of just provide an example that kind of stuck out to me in terms of prospect that I was looking at this week. So I'm just going to share my screen and show you just some ad copy as an example of how you can kind of use not only a success story, but also thinking about your own story as well. And like, this is where it's really powerful, in that a lot of times, especially if you're a coach, or if you've developed a product that kind of solves the problem that you went through as well. You can kind of think back in terms of your own life when you have that same problem. Like, what were some of those trigger moments for you? Like in your own life, what were some of those absolute rock bottom moments for you? And you can use some of those rock bottom moments to, again, start your Facebook ads to drum up that emotion and talk about your transformation. And in that transformation, you really talk through how you discovered your unique process or unique formula or your unique mechanism that makes your product like nothing else out there, your service like nothing else out there. And you kind of provide the full story. And then you obviously talk about your transformation as well, like how your life has changed and why you're really coming back to kind of help people that were in your shoe, that are, like were previously, like if you think back to your life, are just like in your shoes then. So for this example, it's a weight loss coach that focuses on female physicians. Again, this is one of those stories where, she is a physician. She became kind of a life coach and a weight loss coach after going through her own story. She lost over 40 pounds and kind of has a very unique formula in terms of doing that. So she's not talking about counting calories or exercising X number of days. It really is kind of a unique formula that I'll get into in just a second that kind of separates her from all the other weight loss coaches out there. And the fact that she is a physician and has been a physician, kind of went through that same, has been in her audience's shoes before, can talk about certain instances where she was getting into emotional eating. So really is kind of centered around emotional eating a lot. But for her ads, and one of the things that I really picked out is she has a podcast where she really shares a lot of great stories, not only about her own life, but sharing the success stories of some of her clients as well. And I thought that was just an underutilized, kind of group of assets that she has within her podcast. Obviously, they're there in podcast form, but I think she can kind of bring that forward in terms of her Facebook ads. Really, those stories are really going to catch people's attention and get them to, maybe maybe become new podcast listeners, maybe downloading her book, or just getting into her group program right away, all those different instances. So let's kind of just go through it. One of the things that kind of, I thought about as well is, like, she talks about emotional eating. And, like, I'm somebody that is an emotional, I'm a recovering emotional eater, and I still do it from time to time. But if somebody kind of labeled me as an emotional eater, or somebody else, you'd say, I'm not, that's not me. Like, it's not that bad of a problem. But when you really bring emotional eating to life in the form of a story, you can start to really connect with it. And there's one story here that I'll show you in just a second that really kind of bring forwards this coach's story. But I just wanted to focus first on kind of a success story that was told in our podcast that really brings, again, emotional eating to life. Instead of saying I'm an emotional eater, like, what was actually happening? What was that rock bottom moment that happened? So for this one, from one of her success stories, I just put in a quote for that rock bottom moment in that line of, the first two lines in terms of that soundbite. So I found myself questioning life from the floor of a hotel bathroom. I'd never before been to the point where I ate so much that I was sick. I'm not a food addict. It's just that I don't have any coping mechanisms. So again, getting back to, like, people just kind of say, I'm not an emotional eater. I'm not a food addict. But I recognize that I have these problems. So in describing kind of her story, and we kind of get into the story a little bit more. So she's an OBGYN. She was going through her oral boards, which, again, I don't know that much about, but kind of a stressful event, very overwhelming. She got back to her hotel room, and all that stress and overwhelm and all those negative feelings, she just didn't know how to process. So she went into the mini bar and just ate, all the candy bars, everything that was in there, to the point where she got so sick that she was kind of doubled over in the bathroom. So that was kind of her, rock bottom moment that she talked about at the very bottom. But you can see how, instead of saying, like, instead of just starting the question, like, are you an emotional eater? Kind of really bringing that story to life in terms of, like, okay, what is emotional eating? Like, what does it look like? What is, can you maybe, again, the audience hasn't gone through the point where they're doubled over in the hotel, in their hotel bathroom, but they can usually think back to moments where they ate way too much and they kind of regretted that, only to kind of cover over some of those bad feelings. So then I get into a little bit more of the story. So again, kind of pointing to some of the doctors here, everyone else would have books and pens in the pockets of their white coats. She would always have little sugary snacks to get her through the day. And then we get into the transformation. So it was only when she discovered a method to deal with the negative feelings that everything changed. And now we get into all those things that she's been able to experience. Now she weighs less than the day she got married at age 20. She's found the balance between being a good mom and a good doc, and she's learned to process her emotions in a healthy way. So again, she's not only gotten over the fact that she's an emotional eater and she has found a solution to dealing with those negative feelings, but now she has all these other benefits in her extended life as well. And again, kind of just building up the value of the solution. So you're not only going to lose weight, you're not only going to allow yourself to kind of get over that emotional eating, but there's going to be all these other benefits that you might not even realize that are going to open up once we've solved this underlying core problem that you have. And then we kind of start to introduce the solution here. So all emotions have a beginning, middle, and end. If we try to halt them in the middle, they don't magically go away. You need to complete the circle so these emotions are processed and done with without the need for coping. So you can see how we're kind of starting to educate our audience a little bit. So they recognize, at this, in going through that story, they might have recognized, and that might have triggered some emotions or some events that they went through where they ate way too much and they were kind of just covering over some negative emotions. But now we're kind of educating them that, okay, these negative emotions that you keep on trying to just cover over with food, those are actually the core problem. And if we can solve that core problem by really completing the circle, by kind of really being able to process those emotions and giving you a pathway and a process to doing that, here's all the benefits that you're going to get on the other side. And again, obviously in this instance, going to her book, or providing some of those solutions. So if you're a busy doctor who wants all the tools, discover how to lose weight for the last time, overcome your stress eating and exhaustion, and move into freedom around food, pick up your free book using the link below. So that's kind of it. You can see how, again, I used a specific trigger moment in the form of, going back to that hotel room and kind of just overeating to get over a stressful and overwhelming situation. Again, I haven't been in that exact situation, but I can certainly think it brings to mind all those other moments where, okay, maybe I was studying for a test, or maybe I went through something traumatic in my life and I turned to food as a coping mechanism. And I think, certainly this audience can do that. And as I kind of describe some of those other examples, you really allow yourself to kind of connect, the audience will start to connect with this person and this story that they're going to get reading on. And as they get educated on the solution, they, again, they might not even be aware of what their core problem is in terms of leading to that emotional eating. So this other one obviously resonated with me a little bit, like a lot more. And this would kind of go to, again, emotional eating as well. So I was always really excited when it was a girl, and this, for instance, is just the actual coach's story. So this is something that she told in her podcast of an actual, like a year-over-year event that always happened. But again, I think a lot of people would kind of resonate with this as well. Like, I was always really excited when it was Girl Scout cookie time. The cookies would arrive and I'd stack them all in the pantry. I bet you can guess what happened next. Night after night, a whole sleeve of Thin Mints magically disappeared while watching TV. I was eating them all by myself, not even sharing with anyone. I would go through cookie after cookie. I'd even throw in some peanut butter patties for good measure. So I think, like, again, for me as an emotional eater, you can kind of see, like, okay, like Girl Scout cookies only come around one time a year. You got to get your orders in. So you're going to pile them high in your pantry. And when they do come, you're so excited. Especially, like, Thin Mints are one of my favorites as well. So, like, you put them in the freezer, and it's super easy to just, start eating an entire sleeve really quickly. Peanut butter patties are one of my favorites as well. So I would definitely, partner those two together. Definitely wouldn't be sharing them with anybody, even if they were out there. So again, you can kind of start to connect with this coach and saying, like, yeah, I've definitely been there exactly, especially with Girl Scout cookies. I recognize that there was some scarcity there, piled them high, and then, it led to some bad things happening. And again, it kind of talks to, like, using Girl Scout cookies as a coping mechanism. So they made me feel so much better after a long day of seeing patients. No wonder my New Year's resolution diet got derailed year after year, just like clockwork. What I didn't know then, but I know now, is our brains are conditioned to think automatically from a place of scarcity. So again, what we're doing here is kind of like taking the blame off of that person and saying, like, it's almost like not your fault. It's like it's conditioned in your brain of kind of scarcity. Like, that's, for thousands of years, that's how humans have survived, is like using that scarcity to actually go out there and hunt for food and keep themselves alive. Obviously, in our current state, where food is just, is probably beyond abundant for a lot of people, it becomes a little bit too much. So, which only leads to trouble when it comes to food. Girl Scout cookies are not really as scarce as my brain wanted to believe. Beliefs are really just thoughts that we thought to ourselves so many times that we believe them. So again, kind of just thinking of, like, okay, there's just this narrative in your head that keeps on going on and on and on and on. And if you don't question it, it just becomes the truth. Like, again, if you, one of the things that you always hear, especially over the last few years, if you repeat the same lie over and over again, it almost feels like it's true after a while. So this is excellent news, because this means we can change them. Our beliefs are totally optional. For me, scarcity thoughts create feelings of urgency, panic, and vulnerability. When I feel that way, I need to get all the things, all the food, make sure I stay safe and I'm cared for. So here we're kind of really actually talking about like the feelings and emotions that happen around emotional eating. And like, okay, when I have scarcity, or especially around Girl Scout cookies or anything else, like I just start to, like there's these feelings that you might not even recognize. So again, kind of educating the audience a little bit around their problem, and why this is kind of why that end action around eating so many Girl Scout cookies tends to happen year after year. No wonder I would give myself a pass to overeat sweets in those situations. But I've been able to shift my belief to there's plenty of food all the time, which is kind of exactly the truth. There's no scarcity around food. There's no scarcity around Girl Scout cookies. I can buy Girl Scout cookies whenever I need them. These new thoughts make me feel content, in control, and give me freedom around food. So again, I'm not stockpiling anything. When I feel this way, I buy foods that are fuel for my body in a rational way. I don't indulge in brain chatter about which foods, how much, when to eat them. It's just not even a thought in my mind anymore. Now I find it easy to maintain my weight. So again, we're getting to the transformation here a little bit further along in the ad. My body feels good and I don't even have to think or worry about food very often. It's total freedom. Learn more about this approach in my free downloadable guide. So again, as you go through, it doesn't have to be in a specific order. You can really think about like, okay, what is my unique formula? Should probably be in there. Like, what's distinctive about your product or service? But in the early going, what we want to really do is kind of drum up some of those emotions, like take your audience to those specific moments where they feel their problem, the problem, and kind of the emotions and feelings around that. And if you can tell a similar story, so if it could be a testimonial, it could be a story from your own life, it could be some of the research that you found, like could be a specific person in your audience talking about one of their horror stories or their rock bottom moments, and you use that as part of your copy as well. That's perfectly fine. Tell that story of transformation. Again, it doesn't have to be right away, but somewhere in there, you should start to help them visualize what their life is going to look like on the other side, so they can kind of connect those emotions around their problem and start to visualize and give hope to what is possible. And then along the way, setting up, kind of holding their hand in terms of like, okay, here's the next steps. Here's why you should, listen to me versus all the other potential solutions that are out there. Kind of close the doors on all the other solutions as well. And that's what we're kind of doing here around really, like being specific about what solution that we provide and how we're helping people. So we're not getting into counting calories. We're not getting into things like exercising 5 times a week. That's just not necessary with a solution. So it, automatically it makes it more distinctive from a lot of the solutions that are out there. We're really thinking about kind of the thoughts of their mind and kind of changing those thoughts to get to the point where you don't have to emotionally eat, or that food doesn't have control over you. So really important. So to sum up, in your research, in your testimonials, in your life story, if it's applicable to your audience, really think about those trigger moments, because not everybody is thinking about their problems 24 hours a day, but there's certain moments, environments, situations where a lot of those emotions and feelings are bubbling to the surface. So if we can take our audience there and get them in the right frame of mind to be ready for the solution that we're going to offer, that makes it more likely that they're actually going to follow through, rather than trying to be more logical and saying like, okay, here's why my product is best, here's why it's best priced, all those kind of things. We want to introduce that emotion first before we're offering our solution, because it's going to put our audience in the right frame of mind to actually take action and create some urgency around their problem, rather than them kind of sitting back and taking several months or things like that before some other episode comes through or trigger moment comes through where that problem becomes more urgent. So we want to capture their attention while we have it, stir up some of those emotions, and ultimately get them to the solution, and kind of point them to why your solution is better than all the rest along the way. So hope that was helpful as we go along. Also, just wanted to mention, go to my free opt-in. It's called fullconfidenceads.com. In that, you'll see lots of great information, a 5-step process. If you've never run Facebook ads before, maybe you're feeling a little scared or hesitant or nervous about it, it's going to walk you through each step of the way into what you have to do to create great ad copy and kind of actually the actual button pushing of it. So once you create it within Business Manager, there's lots of how-to videos, examples, best practices that you can follow all along the way. So I've created all in video form. So you can kind of have me side by side as you create your ad to ultimately get to those profitable Facebook ads from day one. So again, fullconfidenceads.com is the opt-in there. So check that out. Until next time, take care.